All right. Well, I'm David.
And I'm Scott.
And we are D-tox.
The sound engineer with the intro and outros. Thank you, Colton.
You're very welcome.
I don't know if people understand the struggle week by week Colton goes through to set up this whole podcast studio and then unset it up.
He literally carries the soundboard with him, miles on his back.
Construct and deconstruct. It's amazing. He engineers an entire room every week so that we can provide valuable content.
Makes us sound crisp
to our listeners. Right.
Yep. That beautiful intro.
It's
all him.
It's so good. So good.
That sexy outro. All him.
All him. Basically, it's all him, but
yeah.
We are just the voices. So, what do we got today?
Today we're looking at mob mentality.
Mob mentality. What do you mean by that?
So, if you haven't noticed, whether it's due to political reasons, sports, anything like that, someone who, average Joe, whether it's you or me, you'll find, won't generally commit any acts of violence, will be calm. And then we're at an opposing team, someone hits someone or someone throws something, and suddenly everyone's ready to charge in. And just whatever morality they had before, gone to destroy the opponent's team's either property, whatever it is. And why does that occur and what keeps it going?
I think that sums up every hockey game that ever existed.
Yeah. It's funny enough for the players, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Why does that occur? That is a good question.
And kind of with that, something that's been on my mind is just, why is politics and everything kind of going along with this? Just been noticing that.
I think it's worse now than it was years ago.
I kind of agree.
Yeah.
Not 100%. I agree on the fact that it is worse in how we're acting. I believe the reason behind that is because of technology and how connected we are. Because it went from seeing something on the news, maybe a day later, 2 days later from when it happened, because not everyone was able to watch live TV all the time. And people would just talk about it, to seeing it that moment and immediately being able to go on social media and complain about it and attack someone. And those two things kind of, it goes with mob mentality pretty big. I looked at a couple of researchers at what causes mob mentality, and a lot of them went on kind of this almost energy kick. That's I don't know if you've ever had it where you see someone that's really angry or depressed. The air around them feels different.
Okay, yeah.
And it was kind of going on that note where we're looking at a bunch of people who are distressed, and any sort of sports is a huge example. Whether they win or they lose, funny enough, they don't have to win. They don't have to lose.
Yeah.
To start a riot. I think baseball fans,
right?
They don't have to do that, and all it takes is one person to do something, and it's the I think it was called the loss of self is a huge thing that people go through in those moments. You stop thinking, what if I do this, to what if we do this? They won't be able to catch me if we all do this together. And there's smaller forms, because peer pressure is the biggest thing. There's smaller forms of this happening even in jobs where one person quits, boom, five people quit. I don't know if you've noticed that too.
Wow.
It's
You're
just
right.
There's just an energy that's always there, because we're emotional, and body language is so important to people that when we see anything act out and we think, hey, I can't get caught.
So do you think the reason mob mentality exists is the same in every circumstance, or do you think it differs? Like the hockey game, for example, or we live in the great state of Michigan, and we have had several couches burnt in the streets. Michigan State Spartans fans, full disclosure, I'm not a Spartans fan. So anyways, Like, do you think the reason we burn couches is the same reason we all quit the same job, or we all decide to join I can't think of another example. Join a recycling group. Does mob mentality exist for recycling groups? I have no idea, but
I think it's all peer pressure, just different levels.
okay.
And you're hoping, a lot of those people are hoping to get approval, and they're not thinking of the consequences. Like, if you take someone who will join in on a riot,
Yeah.
they generally do after the first punch is thrown or after the first item is thrown, whatever it is.
Sure.
But you take that person on every day, just by themselves, either walking down the streets, doing their life, they're probably not going to hit you. Like, that's not their intent at all. They just want to live life. But we're always geared. We always have some sort of bias that's in us. Doesn't matter where you are. And again, politics or not. And if there's reason for that bias to go extreme because other people are doing it, we do it. And I think it's crazy because if you look at ants and different things like that, it's almost like a smaller version of us. Like, it rains, they all know what to do.
Sure.
They all kind of, we have that, but in spades for rage. If someone destroys something, everyone knows what to do. It's not like some people are confused on how to attack. You'll have either your runners or your attackers, and then your defenders come in later.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's just, I imagine seeing that from the sky and just it looking like ants, just going nuts. Like, this colony against this one.
It's like a real-time strategy game.
Yeah.
Just kind of watch them.
So I despise the fact that every podcast I go back to my faith, but that's a real part of who I am, so it's going to influence my responses
We're all
to
about being real here.
these questions. Yeah. I do want to talk about instances where we've been a part of mob mentality in the past. But before I do that, I disagree a little bit. I don't think that every circumstance is the same reasoning. All right, if we take a step back and go, all right, why does this exist? Why do we all jump on the bandwagon at a hockey game or wherever? Like, I think the reason, and the same with ants, I think the reason this happens is because, like, we refer to ourselves as something more than us because we can't survive alone. You know, we can't do life on our own. Same thing with ants. Like, an ant cannot exist singular.
Like, they need the other ones to function.
They need the other ones. Yeah. So it's the same way. And when we are at a hockey game or when we are, and I use hockey game because that's just my experience.
That's
I've been
fine.
a part of our mentality before. When I'm at a hockey game, I'm a part of something bigger than myself, you know, and it's not just me sitting in that chair watching a team that I paid money for. That is us, you know, and we are all a part of this, even though that's crazy.
And that was the part in the definition. Like, if you think it's the loss of I.
Yeah.
And the continuation of us.
Yeah.
Just how we, as I say, how we keep thinking in those moments. Because you don't care about what will happen to me.
Right.
It's, and with faith, that's a huge thing. Because, as a Christian, we're looking into, if you see something happen to someone else, you kind of want to stick up for them. And then at the same time, you're always supposed to be aware of that kind of that nature that's built into us. And are you able to break free of that participation? If you're a Spartan fan and you have another Spartan fan throw something at someone, are you going to join in? Like, are you separate from that as a whole? Are you able to distinguish that in your brain, or are the chemicals just going too hard in that moment?
Depends on how passionate of a Spartan fan you are.
Yeah, I guess. But I think that's something that's wrestled with or needs to at least be thought of.
Yeah.
Before going into it. If you're already in it, it's too late.
Yeah.
Like, you need that process before.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think mob mentality just sounds negative. I wish there was a positive word for this, or at least a neutral term, because I think it can be. No,
Distraction.
because I think it can be good and bad.
Yeah.
And let's use the church as an example. I think when it comes to a person's faith, I think that can exist in a good way, and it should exist in a good way. But at a sporting event, it can exist in a good way, but it can also be extremely negative when you are destroying other people's property and you are bringing physical harm to the fans of the other team. Like, that's just not cool.
That's a really good point. Because you think a mob mentality is just automatically bad.
Right.
That's just the term that we're looking at.
Right.
But there are definitely good circumstances.
For
you
sure.
You have a lot of examples where people have gotten into a car accident and couldn't pay their bills.
Yeah.
And you have hundreds of people who wouldn't normally give anyone money in need.
Yeah.
Suddenly they see a handful give and they're like, okay, I want to be a part of this.
Absolutely.
Like, they want to be a part of the recovery just as much as we have maybe that urge to be a part of destruction. And I see that as a huge part of just human nature and how we were built. It's that almost instinct that's built in us. No matter what we believe, we always want to be part of us. And you kind of talked about that a little earlier, but it's just that drive. And if there's something good, generally people want to drive for what's good.
Yeah.
Not always.
Not always. There's several examples of vandalism and destruction.
There's never any absolutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a question. What part of this have we been a part? When have we been a part of this in the past? For me, it's hockey.
See, like,
Full disclosure, I haven't destroyed anything, but I might have shouted some things that I probably shouldn't have shouted at a hockey game.
That's probably where I've been.
I
think I was like 13 or 14. I went to a soccer game. Both Romania and Colombia had lost the actual ability to participate in the cup.
Okay.
So they came to Chicago, and they played each other in Chicago.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen those colors of their flags. They're really similar. They have the exact same color, just different order. So you got people yelling at people that literally have the same flag but just switched around. And it's like, yeah, I get Europe and not Europe, big deal. But man, someone would yell at literally people standing, and 13-year-old me wanting to impress and be like, yeah, I can yell too.
What?
I would yell at them. I was like, and I'd swear at them in Romanian. That was so stupid.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what I was doing. I was a little kid. If I would have, God forbid, if I would have been too close and something would have started. But like, it goes, like, for me, it was a moment to impress. Like, I wanted to show, hey, I'm one of them. But you look at me now, I don't care. I really don't care what Romania does with soccer. I don't even care about soccer. Sorry if you're a fan of soccer. I mean, you're wrong, but I don't care.
All of the FIFA fans just rioted.
Yeah.
They just got some mob mentality because you said that.
I'm sure they did.
They're going to not listen to this podcast.
Oh, they'll still listen out of rage.
Out of rage.
But it was a huge thing because you take a step back and you realize, what was the point? Why did I do that? And
did 13-year-old you actually do that because you wanted to impress the people around you, or was it because you wanted to? You didn't even think about it. I would argue that you didn't even think about it.
Well, no, during the moment, no, but afterwards, it was definitely I wanted to look good next to. I wanted to be part of the gang. Yeah, part of a gang where a sport I don't even watch. I'm Romanian, and it was Romania, and that was the thing.
I guess. All right. I guess I see that. Like, if I'm at my hockey game and everyone else is cheering, and I'm just not. I'm the one sole individual that's not.
And obviously now I can introspect and I can look back a lot deeper than it was at that moment.
Right.
But that was definitely a part of it, that had to do with it. And I'm sure emotion drove it.
Yeah.
It drives a lot of those situations.
Yeah. Do you think I don't know, this is my question just because I'm interested in this kind of thing. Do you think this thing exists, should exist? Do you think this kind of thing should exist in the church? Better yet, does it?
I think it does.
Okay.
Whether I think it should or shouldn't doesn't really matter because it's going to.
And there's a lot of different capacities for it.
I mean, if it didn't, you wouldn't have churches breaking up over carpet or paint on the wall, but you do. And it's kind of like that coworker situation where one person dips and they're like, fine, I wanted to leave anyway. And that emotion just takes hold.
I wish I could find a good example of the everyone quitting their job illustration, because that's a good one.
I mean, even I look
That
back.
happened at my job.
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah, when I quit, it was like one more manager quit, and then 5 workers quit.
You liberated the entire place.
I did, and it felt really good because none of us enjoyed working there. We we called ourselves salt mates, where we complained, and we just complained the whole time we were there. And then we all quit, and life was great, and we haven't talked to each other since.
Man.
So I assume we're happy.
So I guess this kind of thing existed, like Revolutionary War,
I'm sure.
like join the cause.
I wonder how many interactions like that just made a mark on history, and it was all on a whim, and we don't even know.
Like one meeting for coffee, and it's like, we're going to start a revolution. And next thing you know, a whole country is free from tyranny.
And fire to start it.
Like...
And then free in the ashes.
So what can we start right now? That's where my brain goes. What mob mentality sort of revolution can we start? Here we go.
Well,
Let's hope it's a healthy one.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at kind of a big part of where it starts is with self-bias and that collective emotion. So if you go in, it's kind of where you start at home. If you go into a situation, hey, I don't like this, or hey, I like this, it's going to make that mob mentality either good or bad.
Okay.
So if I go in, let's say it's a protest. I don't like this part of the government that's doing this, and I'm with a group of people. If someone starts something, I'm more likely to join in because I already have that bias that's against them.
Sure.
So I think it's more, how do we fix where we start? Because it's kind of like with my mentality, or just with anything, I've learned it's a really good example. If you're building a foundation or a base, and let's say one side, instead of having it completely equal, one side you just have like an inch off. At the base, it doesn't look far off. But when you get to the top, you go from, feet off to miles is a huge exaggeration, but yards. It's just complete, like a bunch of yards off at the end with the corners. And that's how I see a lot of it starts. If we start off at the beginning, aka our biases with how we're going into things, by the time we get to the end, that mob mentality is going to kick in. That emotion, that previous bias is just going to...
It's like when people are scared, like all in a group, and then one person finally freaks out, then everyone freaks out.
You ever seen the Office intro with what is it? It's like the fire intro where Dwight starts the fire.
That one's gold.
Yeah, one of the best intros, and no one was really freaking out. Like they were all kind of just worried.
Yep.
And then Michael just lost it.
Yes.
And suddenly, you got Angela throwing her cat. You got Dwight climbing on the ceiling,
throwing copiers out the window.
Yeah, I mean, even Jim grabbed that. What is it? The bigger copier, and started ramming the door with it.
Oh yeah, it was
the most collective people were losing it, and that's something that like the funny aspect of what brought me to this. You had people who were, an everyday, somewhat normal, quotations, just lose it because one person lost it first.
Right.
Because they all had that initial worry to begin with. And then it just,
So that, that's a good example. Does that fall into the same category? And going back to my initial question, is the reason all of this exists the same? In that instance, I would argue, all right, maybe self-preservation kicked in
Yeah.
for everyone, and you do stupid things when you're trying to stay alive. Like, in that instance, I don't think people are concerned. I don't know, The Office is a silly,
It's a great show.
you know, but in that, say, real life example, I don't think people are concerned about being the lone man
Yeah.
and not looking the part. Like,
See, I wouldn't, to like answer that, I guess like a clear answer is I don't think it all comes from the same place, but I think there is, like if like an outlier that's always there. There's always a drive for people like to do that. I don't think it's on a whim. I mean, the situation can happen at, like in real time. It looks like it's on a whim, but there's always something in the background,
yeah,
just driving at us. Like we have, you know, in the back of our minds, whether we're thinking about it or not, there's always something that's constantly going. I talked with my coworkers about something. You can't say everything you're thinking about. You can't physically say all that's going through your mind at once. Like as I'm observing things in this room,
right,
looking at the mic I don't say, I mean, I said it now, but I don't say that all as I'm talking about what we're talking about. You know, when you're looking at something else.
But when we are together.
Yeah. Well, the whole point is it's almost like a lens. Like you focus on one thing.
Right.
And everything else just blurs out. I would really, something I should have looked in. I should have looked in to see if there's interviews to people who've been in those situations, what they say afterwards. Like, why'd you do that? What caused that? I've just researched the topic itself, but I think that would have been something enjoyable to look at. Would have just been like, hey, why did you get here? You know, what made you, like, you didn't go to that game
right
to light a car on fire. Like,
yeah.
Why'd you do that?
Didn't wake up this morning and want to vandalize my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or burn my own couch.
Right.
Like, I think that's nuts. And a huge part of kind of that subtopic that I brought with this is, you know, when we're looking at polarization and biases, is just, have you noticed politics? It's in so much right now.
I mean, it is in everything right now.
Like you can't shave your face or look at a product to shave your face without seeing that product be pushed politically.
And I don't think it's been that bad throughout history. Like, I think the divide is
stronger,
deeper. Yeah, there's a much larger divide between the two parties nowadays than there was years ago, even 10 years ago. That's just...
My mother would say that that's because people find their identity, like,
In
with
the
a
party.
politic. And bringing that to mob mentality, like, people are becoming this, I am Republican, I am Democrat, and that's, we are Democrat, we are Republican, and they just lose, like, the fact that, oh, we can have differences.
And I think more than that too is what, I don't know if you've noticed this, is you take an issue, an everyday issue, take the environment. A lot of people will just cringe hearing like about environmental stuff, whether it's, hey, you don't believe in it, or hey, you do. Instead of just looking at it objectively and researching and just trying to find out what it is, you have politicians who are literally trying to get votes over this topic. Some say, hey, you know, I think Lake Michigan should have been no water in it, I think by 2 years ago. That was the thing that people were championing. Okay. And now we have more water than we had the last 10 years. But I always think that's funny is you have people literally take one side, and then maybe the other side doesn't really care about the topic, but they'll take the opposition because they're like, hey, you know, we're on this team. If you don't believe what they're saying, come over here. We're on this team, and they get the votes that way. So it, you know, abortion's a huge topic. I don't think necessarily that all Republicans are anti-abortion. What I think is they pick that side because they get the votes for it that are missing from the other side. So you have up top, it's a game.
Oh, for sure.
And
yeah,
then
I agree with you.
And
Yeah.
for us, for anyone who works a job, 9 to 5, or even, if you're like me and you work 2 different ones and crazy schedule,
Yeah.
you see anything like that and you want to gravitate. You don't want to do the work. You want to just gravitate towards, hey, this is my team. I'm going to stick with my team
Yeah.
through thick and thin.
I don't like, we're talking about politics, and I said the divide is larger now than it's ever been, and I think, and I've done no studies, but I think if you look at the facts, I would say throughout history, most Americans have been moderate, between the red and the blue, but something in the last 10 to 20 years, there's been like this growing movement of people to the extremes, even out past what you would classify as Republican or Democrat, extreme right or extreme left. And I think, sure, there are still moderates, but I think those extreme polar opposite ends are growing in numbers, and it's because those extremes are just so big now. It's almost like it's getting out of control, and I don't know, that would be the issue that I see.
And even if they aren't big, the media will make them big because that's all they'll focus on.
But I think they are getting bigger.
I think it's more that they're loud.
Oh, they're super loud. Yeah.
Because they've done different polls, different research. I think the first one, because it kind of hit a huge resurgence and everyone talks about in the media, was like white nationalists and Nazis, different things like that. They did research on how many are there. We're looking, I think the estimate was like 1 to 10,000 is like the common number in America.
And that's
out of
not a
300 and something million people. That's what people are freaking out about. Is generally around that number. And then if you look at, let's say, the other side, it's if you have your like Antifa, different things like that.
Sure.
I think that consists of like 8% or 6% of America is what they're.
I don't know. Like if you look at, like, I'm a big fan of politics, not because I'm like I push one side or the other. I kind of enjoy the game, and like just look at what current candidates are doing. Like take Joe Biden for example. He's the front runner, Democratic nominee. He recently, and this is in the news recently, switched his position on the Hyde Amendment. So the Hyde Amendment basically says that if you want an abortion, you're going to pay for it. And so if I wanted an abortion, I would have to pay for it, and Colton, our sound engineer, wouldn't be forced into paying for my abortion. And for most of history, like, that's just been the norm, like most moderates are for the Hyde Amendment, whether they're for or against abortion. But recently, I don't know if it's because the extreme, I don't even know what to call them, extreme left, or if I don't know if it's because the extremes have been growing in numbers, or just the fact that their voice is larger now. But Joe Biden switched his position. He said, all right, I'm now against the Hyde Amendment, and playing the game. But like, why all of a sudden did he switch his position in favor of what the extreme left represents and not the moderate of America represents? I think it's because those extremes are growing, and he sees value in pitching his positions towards those extremes. And I think all the candidates are kind of swinging that way. They're very rarely do you see a moderate candidate these days. They're playing the game.
They're hidden.
They're playing the game, and they know, if I'm going to win, I have to win over these extremists. And like, to me, that's sad, because it's like, when's the last time a guy ran for anything.
Yeah.
And he was like down the middle moderate. Like, you don't see that anymore.
I definitely agree with a huge part of that. I think a lot of it is more the two camps and the loud voices, and people just following the herd. If people see, hey, these guys are saying we should vote for this, and from his perspective, maybe he just heard those loud voices and like, I don't want to lose the votes. I want to gain this on this side. And then you'll have people who hear those loud voices and just will follow them because they don't have time to think for themselves in that situation. And it goes right or left.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, guys on the right,
I do my
people
best
on the right to
fight for the middle. And I only say that because, and it sucks that this is considered the middle, but I try to look at each situation like that and think about the actual situation, whether that's right or wrong.
Right.
Like if you look at the environment, if you look at abortion, if you look at those different things, look at the topic itself. And instead of say, hey, I agree with these people or agree with these people, like actually look into it and see where you stand as a person. And you'll find that, at least I found that, like none of the politicians really care. They don't care.
Well, they're playing the game. It's their career.
Like, I mean, if the world was really going to end in a handful of years and they knew it, they'd be doing everything they can. Like if they have all that power and money and they had that real drive that they claim to have, I mean, heck, to start off, our roads would be fixed if they really care. I feel like every politician in Michigan has talked about how they want to fix our roads. Man, we have construction season every year.
Yeah.
And they're never fixed.
Which is awful, by the way, in case you haven't been to Michigan.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Like you get free swimming pools with those potholes.
Yeah, you do.
So I just see as that, kind of that bias that starts off, and then you have that loud voice. Only this time, it's kind of more dangerous, because instead of having it in one instance or one situation like a ball game or something like that, you have it over the internet happening every day. You got a kid. I'm sure you've seen situations where someone, as silly as it is, someone takes a picture of their kid in a car seat.
Sure.
And it could be all perfect.
Yep.
One person jumps on about how they don't like something, everyone's going to jump on how they don't like.
When you're talking about mob mentality, like the internet's just a terrible place.
So I see I see politics as the haven. Like that's where mob mentality thrives. Not for good always. Sometimes it can be for good. But I see it because you have something that's at its core partisan. People have to pick a side. And then you include biases on top of that, and then issues on top of that people can be emotional about and have drives for. That's why you have this outrage, is you got people who are subscribing to a team on a topic they're furious about, thinking that team cares about what they're doing, but they don't. I've had so many thoughts of, hey, if I want to cover where I lean, different things like that, or what I believe, I don't think that matters as much as looking at things, not objectively, because we all have biases, people don't admit, but more looking at things with value and seeing the depth in them. And if there is a bias, admitting it. Like I kind of like, my bias is always going to be leaning towards Christian.
Sure.
So that's just where I stand. But that doesn't mean I can't research a topic. That doesn't mean I can't.
Absolutely.
That we can't talk about it. Even this, like, we've had slight disagreements, but we keep moving. Like, it's not like I have no ill will.
I mean, I just defriended you on Facebook, but that
I'm not even on.
I'm teasing.
I wouldn't know until probably a month later.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's just I just see that I don't know where it starts, and sometimes it kind of makes me apathetic towards the topic, and sometimes it just makes me sad. Abortion's a huge one that just makes me sad. People are just talking past each other.
Right.
And even like the biggest one that I noticed, it was a couple years ago. It's what drove me off Facebook, funny enough, was gun debates and how people would lose friends over it.
Yeah.
Because I think if people took a step back, and I don't mean the politicians when I say both sides, but I mean the people behind those sides.
Sure.
they want the same goal.
Yeah.
They want less deaths.
Right.
Granted, we have different ways of going about it,
Yeah.
but if we just acknowledge that we want the same thing, let's figure out a path.
Yes. Yeah.
Like how much more refreshing would politics be? Like an actual conversation rather than just harassment.
For sure.
That's, and going into mob mentality, that's why politics kept kind of nagging on me when I was researching this. So because I know we were going to have this like as like a different topic in general, but it just kept coming in.
It's sort of the same thing. Yeah.
So that team.
Yeah, you get behind a cause that's bigger than yourself, and it can be, I think it can be either good or bad, positive or negative, and most of the time the examples we see are very negative.
Yeah.
But, going back to my faith, what if this actually existed in a positive way in my life, in the church, in the areas of my life I'm passionate about? I think that'd be a very good thing. So I don't know. My big takeaway from this topic is that we can't do life on our own. We need each other. I think that's the big takeaway. We need each other.
So would it be more, kind of with that and looking at mob mentality or groupthink, it's not so much as a way to end it, but how do we turn that to a good thing?
Yeah.
Like how do we build that foundation to make that something worthwhile? I don't know the steps, but I know it starts at the family, and this is something I'll go to probably no matter what topic we go to. I think every issue on this planet starts at the family.
I like that.
Like every single issue, and
I can get behind that.
If you're a part of a family, which we all are,
sure,
something is always screwed up. That's just how this life is.
Yes.
What are we doing to make that family better, or makes ourselves better despite that family? If I come from a divorced home, and I'm sure there's crazy amount of people that come through that.
For sure.
Do you let that brokenness define you? I mean, I grew up single mom, that's my demographic has the highest rate of crimes. Higher than anything else is men that grew up from single mom in the house.
Yeah.
It's the highest rate of crime. That all starts at home. So
absolutely.
Thank God I can't even think the worst thing I did. I didn't wear my seatbelt. Then I got in a car accident. That was a huge crime because I almost lost my life to that. But it's, that like what makes us rebel, and not only that, if you're in a position where I didn't have the steps to be that leader or anything like that, but I looked for it. I kind of had the desire to like find people in my life that were put together, that did have that. I had friends. One of my best friends, he's got a wonderful family.
Sure.
I hung out at his house all the time.
Yeah.
Like, that's just something I gravitated towards. So I think whether it's our family or another one, just finding that unit at home, it kind of levels out everything else. Like every bad thing starts from the home, but every good thing does. So if I think if that would be at least my solution, and you'll probably hear it again and again, depending on the topic, because I think no matter what it is, biases, the first place you learn to hate is at home. It's also the first place you learn to forgive, to kind of get over it, to share. So if we just somehow find ways to amplify that.
Yes.
I think that's
good. I was well prepared to say your initial question, how do you spin this in a positive direction? Yeah. I didn't have an answer for you, and that is awesome. I love that answer.
And kind of just before we end this, speaking of division or mob mentality.
Oh, is this a random question of the day?
Is.
Yeah.
Pepsi or Coke?
Oh.
And why?
They're both disgusting.
Why are you wrong or why are you right?
Did you just say they're both disgusting?
I drink water.
I'm about to turn your mic off.
and I drink coffee.
Authority by the sound engineer.
Water and coffee. That's it.
Okay, I could respect
I don't.
I swapped out pop for sparkling water. But man, if I'm going out, I love beer.
Yeah.
But if I have pizza or something like that, nothing beats a Coke with pizza.
I agree.
You can't even at me because I don't have a Twitter, but you whatever.
So
Like, I say Coke.
So
I think
I would pick Pepsi solely based on their 90s, early 2000s marketing campaign with Britney Spears.
okay.
That's it.
You know the funniest thing about that whole thing
What?
is Pepsi's run Pepsi or Coke
Yeah.
competitions at like tents and stuff at different concerts.
Right.
And they've covered it. They've run this and they always lose.
Who?
Coke always wins.
Oh,
Like
really?
Pepsi will run these kind of tents where it's like, which one do you like more? And then they put the percentages. Coke wins like 90% of the time. And what's funny is like, why can't you just lie?
Yeah.
Why can't you just
That's true.
like, why you gonna host that and just lose your own battle?
Well, Coke is like an international brand.
Yeah.
Like you travel overseas, third world countries, and people don't have signs for their convenience store. They just have a sign out front that says Coca-Cola. Like they are making some serious money, but I don't know. So they win the competition for biggest branding and largest business, but
And just
you can't beat Britney Spears singing a Super Bowl commercial for you, right? Because I think she did that,
Yeah.
right? I don't know.
one
That's
more-
way better than the polar bear, whatever they have nowadays for Coca-Cola.
I think we should do a double feature.
Okay.
One more. Boxers or briefs?
Easy. Boxers.
I believe in a mutated child. Boxer briefs.
Whoa. All right.
If you're not doing, because it's
The
got
hybrid.
well, it's got the comfort of a boxer,
Yeah.
but you're not swimming around. It's got a tightness of a brief,
All right.
but you can breathe, you can walk.
Please tell us all sides are represented here
You
today.
see, I am. It really just depends on what I'm doing for the day.
All right.
Because
I can see that. Like if you're relaxing, boxers.
yeah, pretty much. Like if I'm just at home, boxers. That's the way to go. But if I'm out and doing something, I'm usually like a tight pants kind of person anyway.
Okay.
So it really doesn't matter for me because like tight pants just
Right.
acts like.
Just wear instead of boxer briefs, because like I said, I'm right in the middle there. Why not just wear both? Just wear wear
Yeah.
briefs and boxers right over and call it a
Wow.
day.
That would be-
I'm like a good like 30% of the time. Like I just don't. So
just don't.
Commando.
that's right.
There you
Commando
go.
sound.
I didn't. The commando at the commando sound engineer. We should start a Twitter for you,
Sounds good.
just like that. The
get it
commando
going.
sound engineer. I love that.
All right. Well,
That's been good.
that's been good. We good?
Oh, we're so good.
You know what you should do? You should join in with all of your friends and listen to the rest of our podcasts.
Yeah.
Because that's what
And
that's what people do.
it never hurts to subscribe, to hit the bell.
Yes.
That it helps.
All of you that have done that, we love you.